Attraction rarely disappears because a man lacks value. In most cases, it fades because his attention is too available, too predictable, and too centered on a woman. When a man's life quietly begins to orbit around her responses, her mood, and her presence, something fundamental shifts. He may believe he is showing care, interest, or devotion. But psychologically, what he is projecting is waiting, and waiting energy is not attractive. It communicates that nothing else in his life carries equal weight. Women do not consciously calculate this, but they feel it instinctively. Attraction weakens when a man's time seems endlessly accessible, when a man truly locks in on himself. Availability does not reduce because he's playing games or following dating tactics. It reduces naturally because his days become full. His schedule gains structure. His mornings start with training or movement. His work demands focused blocks of attention. His evenings are reserved for skill development, recovery, or planning the next step forward. Texting becomes occasional, not because he is ignoring anyone, but because he is genuinely engaged elsewhere. Replies are no longer immediate or emotionally driven. Conversations are shorter, cleaner, and purposeful. There is no need to stretch them just to feel connected. This shift creates a powerful psychological contrast. Attention that was once constant becomes selective. Presence that was once guaranteed becomes earned. Scarcity forms without effort. And scarcity creates curiosity. A woman begins to notice the silence not as absence, but as momentum. She senses movement, she senses direction, and direction is magnetic because it signals a future that exists with or without her approval. It is important to understand that a man does not become rare by withholding attention or pretending to be busy. That kind of behavior collapses quickly because it is rooted in insecurity. A man becomes rare by building himself so seriously that distraction no longer fits into his life. His reduced availability is not a strategy. It is a consequence. This is where the first misunderstanding begins to dissolve. Attraction does not grow when a man withdraws from women. It grows when he advances toward his own life. And once that movement begins, everything else starts to reorganize around it. But reduced availability is only the surface effect. Beneath it lies a deeper shift that changes why he no longer chases at all. Which leads directly into the next part, when a man begins to focus seriously on himself. Something subtle but decisive changes inside him. He stops chasing women not because he has learned restraint, but because his energy is finally aimed somewhere that moves him forward. Most chasing behavior is not driven by love or desire. It is driven by fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing her attention. Fear that if he does not constantly prove himself, he will be replaced. These fears create urgency, and urgency creates pressure. That pressure leaks into messages, conversations, and behavior long before a man is aware of it. Before focus, his days quietly revolve around external validation. He checks his phone too often. He rereads messages looking for meaning. He explains himself more than necessary. He gives more than he can sustain. Hoping effort will secure attachment. None of this feels weak to him in the moment. It feels caring. But underneath, his nervous system is searching for reassurance. And women feel that search even when words sound confident. Once a man commits to building his life, his internal dialogue changes. His mental energy shifts away from questions like whether she replied, how long it took, or what he should say next. Instead, his attention moves toward what he is creating, what skill he is sharpening, what weakness he is correcting, what progress he made today. Fulfillment starts coming from movement rather than response. And the need to chase dissolves naturally. Without discipline or suppression, this is where attraction begins to reverse. An empty life looks outward for completion. A full life invites others to step into it. When a man has direction, a woman becomes an addition, not a solution. She is no longer responsible for his mood, confidence, or sense of worth. That responsibility returns to where it belongs, with him. Women sense this shift immediately. There is no grasping energy, no urgency to impress, no subtle pleading for attention. Instead, there is grounded presence, interest without dependence, engagement without pursuit. And paradoxically, this absence of chasing creates safety. It signals emotional stability. It signals that connection is wanted, not needed. At this stage, women stop being the mission. They become optional companions along a path that already exists. But this creates a new challenge. When a man stops chasing, he must also learn how to protect what he is building. And that is where boundaries begin to matter, which is what the next part will uncover. A man who lacks self-focus is not only less attractive, he is easier to use. When his time is unstructured and his purpose unclear, his resources become open for extraction. This does not happen because women are malicious. It happens because human nature responds to availability without cost. Time, money, emotional labor, and attention flow outward from him with little resistance. He listens endlessly, pays to impress, shows up whenever asked, and absorbs emotional weight that is not his to carry. Over time, this creates an unbalanced dynamic where effort is one-sided and respect quietly erodes. Once a man begins focusing on himself, this pattern breaks. His time becomes protected because it has value. He no longer fills empty hours with endless conversations that lead nowhere. He stops spending money to buy approval or affection. He no longer positions himself as an emotional crutch, absorbing stress, confusion, or chaos simply to feel needed. Most importantly, he stops allowing himself to become a convenience option, available only when it suits someone else's mood or schedule. This shift introduces boundaries, not rigid rules designed to control women, but internal standards designed to protect the man. Boundaries are not spoken aggressively. They are enforced quietly through behavior. He leaves when conversations drain him. He declines plans that interrupt his priorities. He does not negotiate his values to maintain interest. These boundaries change how women perceive him. Because boundaries signal self-respect. Women may use men they do not respect. They may lean on men who overgive. But they chase men they cannot easily control or predict. Uncertainty born from strength creates tension. When a man's actions are guided by principle rather than reaction, his behavior becomes harder to manipulate. His yes means something because it is not automatic. His no carries weight because it is not emotional. At this point, attraction deepens not through effort, but through restraint. The man is no longer trying to earn his place. He already has one, anchored in his own life. And because he is no longer exploitable, his presence becomes more valuable. However, boundaries alone are not enough. Respect must be reinforced by evidence. Words without results collapse quickly. The next shift happens when confidence moves from what he says to what he proves. And that is where the next part begins. Confidence that exists only in language is fragile. Anyone can say they are driven, disciplined, or ambitious, but without visible proof. Those words carry little weight. When a man truly focuses on himself, confidence stops being something he explains and becomes something others observe. His body changes because he trains consistently. His appearance sharpens because he respects himself enough to maintain it. His posture improves because he is no longer shrinking to seek approval. His financial behavior becomes disciplined, not flashy, because he is thinking long-term rather than trying to impress in the moment. Women respond to these signals instinctively. They are not evaluating his affirmations or listening for declarations of self-belief. They are reading outcomes. They notice calm movements, steady habits, and a lifestyle that reflects intention. Real confidence is quiet because it does not need to convince. It simply exists. This is why lifestyle becomes the loudest signal of confidence. How a man spends his time, what he prioritizes, and how he handles responsibility all speak louder than charm or clever words. When a man has results, he does not need to sell himself. There is no pressure in his presence because there is nothing to prove. However, results do not appear without sacrifice. Consistency demands discomfort. Physical progress requires discipline. Financial stability requires restraint. Emotional maturity requires facing weakness rather than hiding from it. Many men want the confidence that comes from results without paying the cost required to earn them. Attraction does not work that way. Effort is not optional. It is the price of entry as these results accumulate. Something else changes beneath the surface. Emotional reactions soften. The nervous energy that once drove urgency begins to fade. Confidence rooted in proof creates internal security. And when security grows, reactivity dissolves. This is where attraction shifts again. Women feel the difference between a man who is confident because he says so and a man who is confident because his life confirms it. One seeks validation. The other offers presence. Yet the most powerful transformation is not external. It is emotional. The way a man responds to uncertainty, silence, or challenge reveals more than his achievements ever could. That emotional shift is the next layer, and it begins when calm replaces reaction. Which leads us directly into the next part. Reactivity is one of the clearest signals of emotional dependence. When a man's sense of stability is tied to external responses, his nervous system stays on edge before he focuses on himself. Small uncertainties feel large. A delayed reply triggers anxiety. A change in tone creates overthinking. Social media activity becomes something to analyze rather than ignore. During moments of tension, he explains himself too much, tries to fix emotions that are not his, or rushes to restore comfort at the cost of his own center. None of this is intentional. It is the natural response of a man whose future feels uncertain. When a man commits to building his life, this pattern begins to dissolve. His attention shifts toward long-term progress, and his nervous system stabilizes. Silence no longer feels threatening. Uncertainty becomes tolerable. He no longer needs constant reassurance because his confidence is no longer borrowed. Emotional calm replaces emotional urgency. This calm is not indifference. It is grounded presence. He can enjoy connection without clinging to it. He can express interest without fear of loss. He can step back without anxiety because his life continues moving forward, regardless of any single outcome. Detachment from outcome does not mean lack of care. It means emotional independence. Women feel this shift immediately. Calm energy creates intrigue because it signals strength. A man who does not panic under uncertainty communicates that his world is stable. He does not need to rush, pressure, or persuade. There is no fear in his tone, no desperation in his actions. An absence of fear is deeply attractive. Attraction grows when fear disappears. When a man's future matters more to him than immediate attention, his behavior naturally slows. He listens more. He reacts less. He chooses his responses rather than surrendering them to impulse. This creates emotional tension in a healthy way, because he is no longer predictable or reactive. At this stage, something remarkable happens without trying to attract. He begins to reverse the dynamic. Interest starts to move toward him. Conversations shift. Effort becomes more balanced. He is no longer chasing connection. He is allowing it. But this reversal is not the final transformation. The true shift occurs when a man realizes that he is no longer auditioning for approval at all. He is choosing intentionally. And that is when he becomes the prize without effort, which is where the next part begins. When a man's internal foundation changes, attraction reverses without strategy. He does not wake up deciding to be the prize. He simply stops behaving like someone who needs to be chosen. The combined effects of his transformation begin to stack. His availability is lower because his life is full. He no longer chases because his purpose gives him direction. His boundaries are clear because his time and energy matter. His confidence is visible because it is proven. His emotional energy is calm because his future feels secure. Together, these changes alter how women experience him. He no longer auditions for approval. There is no subtle performance in his words, no hidden effort to impress. He shows up as himself, complete and grounded, and allows connection to develop naturally or not at all. This absence of pressure is rare, and rarity draws attention. At this stage, his behavior shifts from seeking to selecting. He listens more carefully. He notices how a woman behaves rather than how she makes him feel. He evaluates alignment instead of chasing chemistry. Interest becomes intentional rather than impulsive. This creates a powerful psychological contrast, because most men are still trying to earn attention. A man who is choosing instead of chasing signals self-respect. Women recognize this immediately. They feel the lack of desperation. They sense that his attention is not guaranteed. His presence feels valuable because it is not automatic. Even when he is kind, there is no softness rooted in fear. Even when he is interested, there is no urgency behind it. That balance creates attraction without effort. It is important to clarify something here. Not all women will chase, and they should not. This transformation is not about becoming universally desired. It is about becoming unmistakably grounded. The women who are aligned with this energy will notice. The ones who are not will fade away without conflict or drama. This is the point where many men misunderstand the process. They think becoming focused means becoming cold. In reality, focus replaces neediness with stability. It allows warmth without dependence and interest without insecurity. But to fully understand this shift, the core truth must be stated clearly. Women chase what they cannot replace. And what cannot be replaced is a man who has chosen his life. That final synthesis ties everything together. And it is where this journey concludes. At the core of everything discussed lies a simple truth that most men resist at first. Women chase what they cannot replace, not because it is unavailable, but because it is irreplaceable. A man becomes irreplaceable when his life has structure, direction, and momentum that does not depend on anyone's approval. When his sense of identity is anchored in what he is building, not in who is watching. The cause and effect chain is unavoidable. When a man focuses on himself, his life begins to fill. When his life fills, his need decreases. When his need decreases, his emotional energy stabilizes. When his emotional energy becomes calm, attraction emerges naturally. There is no manipulation in this sequence, no tactics, no pretending. Each step flows from the one before it. This is why chasing women never works long-term. Chasing communicates replaceability. It signals that attention is the reward rather than the byproduct of a meaningful life. The moment a woman senses that she is the center rather than a companion, attraction collapses, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. Attraction requires movement. Stillness invites comfort, not desire. The instruction, then, is not to become distant or cold. It is to become invested elsewhere, to redirect energy toward your health, your discipline, your craft, your future, to wake up with objectives that demand focus and end the day knowing progress was made, even if no one witnessed it. This is what creates internal gravity. When a man chases his life, women experience him differently. He is not asking to be chosen. He has already chosen. He is not trying to secure attention. He is deciding where his attention belongs. That shift alone changes everything. Focus does not remove emotion. It refines it. It replaces anxiety with presence. It replaces insecurity with steadiness. It replaces neediness with quiet confidence. And in that space, attraction is no longer forced. It is invited. There is one final distinction that must be made to complete this picture. Because many men misunderstand what focus truly means. And that clarification brings everything to its conclusion in the final part. The final distinction is the one that prevents this entire message from being misunderstood. Becoming focused is not becoming cold. It is not emotional withdrawal, arrogance, or indifference. Focus does not harden a man. It stabilizes him. When a man builds a life he respects, he does not lose warmth. He loses neediness. And there is a crucial difference between the two. Coldness is avoidance. Focus is commitment. A focused man is still capable of care, affection, and connection. But those qualities are no longer driven by fear. He does not give to secure attachment. He gives because he chooses to. He does not stay to avoid loss. He stays because alignment exists. This makes his presence honest rather than transactional. Stability replaces the emotional volatility that once controlled him. He is no longer pulled off center by silence, uncertainty, or shifting attention. His mood is not dictated by replies or reactions. His confidence does not rise and fall with validation. This internal consistency is what creates trust, tension, and attraction simultaneously. Women feel safe around men who are steady, and they feel drawn to men who are grounded in their own direction. This is why the message is not about women at all. Women are not the problem to solve. They are the mirror that reflects where a man's energy is placed. When his energy is scattered, attraction fades. When his energy is focused, attraction appears, not because he demanded it, but because he embodied something rare. The path forward is clear and uncomfortable. Stop chasing attention. Stop waiting to be chosen. Stop organizing your days around reactions. Start building something that requires discipline, patience, and sacrifice. Let your life become full enough that attention is no longer the prize. When that happens, attraction becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Connection becomes intentional, not urgent. And relationships form from strength rather than lack. This is not a trick. It is a transformation. And once a man chooses his life fully, everything else finds its proper place.